What is happening, baby? Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Huddle, presented by the Huddle Chat Sports Network. Today, we are discussing the AFC North as we go through our division-by-division breakdown and discuss all 32 teams, the offseason changes, the coaching staff changes, the scheme flips, the player movement. It's been a long offseason, and there's been a whirlwind of changes. You may not have been able to catch up with it, or you may have been doing things in the offseason and kind of just plain forgot where players have gone. And that's where I'm here to fill in those gaps, help you kind of get a reminder of where things were at the end of last year, how things have changed in the offseason, and where we're going to be going into this year as we get into our pre-draft rankings starting tomorrow, as we've been doing a ton of video editing, video recording this week to get that ability to go back to daily episodes for you guys. So not only are we continuing this NFL division breakdown, going through all 32 teams and their offseason changes, but tomorrow, after the Hall of Fame game, we are going to be starting our pre-draft rankings and really start getting into draft strategies and get into our draft ability, because now is the time. It's that wonderful time of the year that we get back into fantasy football season. Now is also the wonderful time of the episode where I invite you to fill up your cup, roll something up, and let's get right into the news. We're going to be discussing, like I said, all of those coaching staff, scheme, player movement changes, how it's going to affect opportunity share, how injuries going with different players, and things of that nature. So starting in that AFC North, kicking it off with the Baltimore Ravens, the division champions of last year, finishing at 12-5. You're looking at the Baltimore Ravens really remaining very similar. Not many changes have happened in the offseason, which is good. Expect continuity from this Baltimore Ravens team. You're looking at Harbaugh and Monken remaining as the head coach and the offensive coordinator. It's going to stay a physical, run-heavy offense and team in that aspect. It's going to be complemented by play-action plays and the efficient passing that's going to come from Lamar Jackson. That is going to be key. Now, you're always going to be looking at them having lower overall passing volume than most players, but that's where players like Lamar Jackson at the quarterback is going to remain a stable, elite, high-floor fantasy football option because of his rushing. You're going to be looking at him having that rushing volume, and as I said, the efficiency is going to be key. We're not going to spend a ton of time talking about Lamar Jackson. He's still one of the top 4, top 3, top 2 quarterbacks in the NFL in some people's opinion, and I think Lamar Jackson is definitely going to be one of the first quarterbacks off the board in almost every draft in fantasy football this season. Now you're looking at the Baltimore Ravens in the offseason losing Nelson Aguilar and Deontay Johnson, and Deontay Johnson really wasn't much to lose in the first place, but they did add DeAndre Hopkins in the replacement. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a target hog. He's going to demand a significant target share in this offense. You're expecting him to be around 18 to 22% in this offense, especially downfield. He's going to help out this passing game significantly. You're looking at him adding high value to this passing game, which is going to only help out Lamar Jackson. Now, this, as I said, going into talking about this team, it is a physical, run-heavy team, and it's going to be led by the King Henry himself. You're looking at him remaining the undisputed back, obviously. He's going to command a massive rush share because who else is going to be taking the rushes from him? Now, Derrick Henry has never been known for his target share. His target share, especially in his age, is going to be extremely low. You're looking at maybe 5 to 8% in his target share coming out of the backfield as a wide receiver. But like I said, he's commanding that massive rush share, and his touchdown upside is absolutely elite. Now, the number 1 wide receiver on the team is Zay Flowers. You're looking at him being a consistent short area and slot target for Lamar Jackson. He may see 20 to 23% in reliable volume in this offense. Now, like I said, the passing volume itself may be lower from week to week. It's not going to be a consistent passing volume as far as the offense goes, but you can expect Zay Flowers to retain a reliable passing target share in this offense. Now, the number 1 tight end, Mark Andrews, he's going to be Lamar's primary red zone target. He's going to be a danger there in the end zone inside of that 20-yard line. He's a reliable chain mover, and you're going to be expecting him to get 18 to 22%. Don't let last year really cloud your opinion. I know last year was a rough time for Mark Andrews, but it was a rough time for a lot of tight ends in the NFL and in fantasy football. Mark Andrews is still going to be a tight end 1, and you're looking at Mark Andrews really, like I said, being Lamar's favorite target. I have nothing but confidence in Mark Andrews this season. Now, moving on, and before we move on to the next team, I want to make sure I ask you guys one last time, if you like the content, make sure you smash that like button, because you have no idea how much that really helps me out. Now, you're also looking at that subscriptions bar right next to the like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, and I'm looking at over 50% of y'all watching this video right now that have not subscribed to the channel yet, so make sure you smash that subscriptions bar as well as that notifications bell. Like I said, we're getting back into our daily videos. We're getting into our draft strategies. We're getting all of this information together just specifically for you. So help me out. Help yourself out. hit that subscriptions bar. Moving on into the Cincinnati Bengals, looking at them finishing 9-8 last year, and last year was a crazy year for the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow played absolutely amazing. The defense played absolutely the opposite, and the Cincinnati Bengals lost a lot of games that they really shouldn't have. You're looking at them having Zach Taylor still at head coach and Dan Pitcher at the offensive coordinator. It's a pass-heavy, high passing volume that leverages elite wide receivers when you're looking at their offensive scheme. You're looking at in the offseason, they added Samaje Perine. Expect him to step into kind of a secondary backup role here in the offense behind Chase Brown. And a lot of people are extremely high on Chase Brown this year, and I am one of those people. I think Chase Brown is going to be a reliable running back 1 for you, even low-end running back 2, depending on where your draft position is in your league and where your league mates are going. Chase Brown is not a running back that I would be unhappy to have on my roster. You're looking at Joe Burrow at quarterback, still being an elite QB1, still having high passing volume and extreme accuracy. He is a top quarterback, and I wouldn't be surprised for him to finish in the top 3 or even as the top fantasy football quarterback at the end of the year. So there's not much needing to be said about Joe Burrow. We're going to say that a lot in the AFC because the AFC is where a lot of the powerful quarterbacks are. Of course, we're going to be getting into the Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescotts of the world, but the Joe Burrows of the world are the people that we're talking about right now. And like I said, Joe Burrow is the quarterback you want on your fantasy football team. The person he's throwing to the most, Jamar Chase, their connection is it's unspoken. There really needs to be no words said about their connection. Just like his running mate, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase is going to be an elite wide receiver 1. He commands a massive target share, and you're looking at him even potentially being the number 1 wide receiver off the board in some of your fantasy football leagues. You're looking at him taking 28 to 32% a target share from one of the most accurate and reliable quarterbacks in the NFL. And of course, health has to remain for both of them for things to work out, but we're not really getting into that right now. I think Jamar Chase has a great opportunity to finish as the number 1 fantasy football wide receiver, as his running mate Joe Burrow has a great chance to finish as the number 1 fantasy football quarterback. Now, on the opposite side of the field from Jamar Chase, you're looking at T. Higgins, another strong wide receiver, and he could be a strong wide receiver too in your offense. He really operates as almost a 1B in this offense, and you're expecting him to have a 20 to 25% target share. Now, when we move to the tight end, the Bengals have typically spread their targets to a commonwealth of tight ends. Normally, their tight ends don't usually have a high individual target share, but you have Mike Gesicki coming in this year. He could have a chance at a career resurgence and taking the majority of the individual target share amongst the tight ends in the Cincinnati Bengals in the Cincinnati Bengals offense at the current moment. But I'm not going to be really spending too much time focusing on Mike Gesicki at the beginning of the year. You're looking at the Cincinnati Bengals, of course, still being a team that's going to be peppered throughout tons of fantasy football leagues in your offense. Like I said, expect continuity with the Baltimore Ravens and with the Cincinnati Bengals. Moving on into the teams with a lot more questions in this division. First, we're going to start with the Browns because the Browns have really... they've been the Browns. What more can you say? You're looking at Judkins, their rookie running back that just drafted, being arrested. Who knows what his stance is going to be coming into the season? Of course, how the NFL operates, it's all going to depend on how things are working with his legal battle and things like that before they take any action. So you might still get some Judkins in this season. So we're still going to spend some time talking about him. But in the quarterback, Deshaun Watson, boy, that $400 plus million guaranteed dollars is not looking great for Browns or Browns fans. You're looking at Deshaun Watson apparently re-tearing his Achilles tendon, and he's most likely going to miss the rest of the year, and we haven't even started the year yet. Now, moving on to what they do have, you're looking at Tommy Rees is now the offensive coordinator in this offense. However, Kevin Stefanski remains the main play caller and the head coach in this offense. Expect a run-heavy, play-action-focused scheme out of these coaches. You're looking at the quarterbacks really being a contributing factor to that, because right now you're looking at them adding Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco in the offseason, and then drafting Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders in this offseason as well. So you have an extreme quarterback battle, and that's due to the fact that Deshaun Watson re-tore that Achilles and is likely out of 2025. Right now, Joe Flacco is projected to be the number 1 starter on week 1, likely due to his experience, his familiarity with the Kevin Stefanski scheme. You're looking at the passing game outlook, no matter what direction they go in, is going to be volatile. There is going to be some bumps in the roads for the Cleveland Cleveland Browns. You're looking at them. You're going to have to expect lower volume out of this offense as far as a passing standpoint comes this year. But I mean, you're looking at the running back Jerome Ford. He is a high-end running back one, in my opinion. You're looking at him stepping into that lead role completely with no questions after Nick Chubb left. You're looking at him having a 10 to 14% target share in the offense because his receiving ability is a plus, and he's going to be a target, a security blanket for no matter what quarterback is running in this offense, as is really the biggest target in this offense, the focal point of this passing attack, David Njoku. David Njoku, I'm still in on this year. You're looking at him being a high-end tight end one. You're looking at him, he should probably remain as the focal point in this offense because you're looking at Jerry Jeudy still being a complete option for them at the current moment, but David Njoku is a security blanket, as Jerome Ford will be, and it's going to be really dependent for David Njoku on his red zone usage because he always has had a strong red zone usage. If they can retain that red zone usage and get into the red zone, you're looking at David Njoku still representing a top 10 tight end easily this season. And like I said, he should remain a focal point in this offense. Now, as I was speaking about Jerry Jeudy, he is a decent wide receiver, a high-end wide receiver one. He ended up finishing really high last year as wide receiver 13, if you can believe it or not. Now, he is a low-end wide receiver two, in my opinion, just due to that volatile passing game that the Cleveland Browns are going to represent this year. You're not going to be able to look at him being a reliable target on your fantasy football option that you're going to be able to trust. However, you're going to look at some boom and bust weeks for Jerry Jeudy. He's going to have weeks where he's going to go absolutely insane, as he's done. You're looking at the quarterback, like I said, is just going to be capping his upside. So I still would be comfortable having Jerry Jeudy just as a number 2 wide receiver, high-end wide receiver 3, in my opinion. Now, as we were talking about Quinshon Judkins, we're not going to spend a ton of time, but he is a highly touted rookie. He's likely to force a committee with Jerome Ford. So if you look at Quinshon Judkins not really missing any time, any suspended time or anything like that, Jerome Ford that's going to definitely lower Jerome Ford's value as we get through this training camp and through this process in his legal battle. We'll figure out more with Quinshon Judkins. But I think Quinshon Judkins is definitely going to be a person we're going to be talking about if he plays this season. Looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers finishing last season at 9-8, the Pittsburgh Steelers have endured offensive struggles, and especially in 2024. They failed to generate explosion, despite the fact having some of the most explosive players in the league on their team. You're looking at George Pickens not being a part of this team anymore. They had some really big departures. They lost Russell the Love Muscle. Russell Wilson is not on the team anymore. Najee Harris no longer a part of the team anymore, and George Pickens no longer a part of the team. Now, in the offseason, they did add Aaron Rodgers, the offseason addition that has had the most focus, the most attention. We all know what Aaron Rodgers represents and what he brings to the team, but they also did add Jonnu Smith at tight end as well. Speaking with the Aaron Rodgers situation, you're looking at Aaron Rodgers being a huge acquisition. I'm not sneezing at the Aaron Rodgers acquisition, but you're looking at him also bringing that passing talent. Aaron Rodgers is signing for that 1 year veteran minimum, so it's not a forever thing here. And of course, nobody I think was ever expecting it to be. You're looking at this scheme most likely going to be a run heavy scheme this year. You're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers having Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith, both run heavy coaches. It's going to be a run heavy scheme, but Rodgers' ability to stretch the field, Rodgers' efficiency, it cannot be ignored. You're looking at him being a low-end QB2, not somebody that's going to be your starting quarterback, but through bye weeks, through injuries, through trades, Aaron Rodgers might see some weeks on your fantasy football starting lineup if you're comfortable with going that route. Now, moving on to the running aspect of the Pittsburgh Steelers, as we said, it's going to be a run-heavy approach. And Jaylen Warren, I'm absolutely smitten with Jaylen Warren in my fantasy football research this year. You're looking at him being the clear winner of the offseason, I think, in the whole AFC North. You're looking at with Najee Harris being gone, he was already splitting carries with Najee Harris and eating into every day's production for Najee Harris. Now, you're looking at Jaylen Warren being the undisputed lead back in this offense. His receiving ability is a complete upside in this offense. You're looking at him most likely representing a 10 to 15% target share, especially in this scheme. Now, with Jonnu Smith, their new acquisition at the tight end room, you're looking at him being a person that thrived in Arthur Smith's scheme before when he played with Arthur Smith, as he did in Atlanta, you're looking at Jonnu Smith significantly going to be impacting Pat Freiermuth's target share in this offense. And it's because of that, I really don't know how to judge the two tight ends. I think Pat Freiermuth, of course, the Steelers nation loves Pat Freiermuth. His target share is likely going to decrease with Jonnu Smith. I'm not going to say he's going to lose his job, but like I said, Jonnu Smith did thrive with Arthur Smith. He had a consistent 12 to 15% target share with Arthur Smith in his offense, and I think that he can still kind of maintain that same type of target share in this offense. You're looking at his red zone opportunity being really great with Arthur Smith. Jonnu Smith, we talked about him a lot last season when he was an Atlanta Falcon. And now, like I said, I think it's going to significantly impact Pat Freiermuth and this offense. I really don't think any of the Pittsburgh wide receivers, besides DK Metcalf, are going to be worth anything. Of course, DK Metcalf is going to be the alpha wide receiver. You have Calvin Austin, Robert Woods in this offense, but I just really don't think that Calvin Austin and Robert Woods are going to be worth draft spots in your fantasy football league. DK Metcalf is DK Metcalf. Aaron Rodgers is going to be a consistent quarterback to DK Metcalf. Of course, DK is going to be probably a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 in your offense, depending on how many times the Steelers can get into the end zone. You're looking at Aaron Rodgers, number 1 wide receiver, always being a consistent top fantasy football option. So DK Metcalf, of course, is going to get his flowers this year, but I'm not really focusing too much on any other Pittsburgh Steelers wide receivers at the current moment. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, guys, we're going to be getting into our division breakdown. We're going to be continuing that tomorrow, and we're going to be getting into our pre-draft rankings starting tomorrow as well. So look for 2 episodes at least coming out tomorrow. And like I said, I'm back into daily episodes at this point for you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in, staying in tune with everything. And as always, make sure you keep your head up and your attitude down. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.